All right, so I'm successfully logged into my QuickBooks. I even uploaded a little logo. I have my name correct. But I'm sitting on this dashboard. Every time I log into QuickBooks, that's what I see, and it just feels like a lot's going on. So just know QuickBooks is going to try to help you navigate the platform. So they're going to suggest things to do. For example, add more business info, try to get paid online. Do you want to set up online payments? Get ready for invoicing. All this stuff can be helpful, but again, they're notifications for everyone. So they might not apply to you. And if you don't care about getting paid online, for example, you don't have to worry about it. Always know that you can close widgets, you can rearrange things, you can get rid of shortcuts if you don't actually think you'll use them. But you can also edit them if you want to add some frequently used shortcuts or favorites. You can also customize the layout here on the right-hand side. So if you're more interested in your bank accounts and your profit and loss than you are in, something like your cash flow trend or any other option that they have for you down here, you can just rearrange it to see whatever you actually want to see on your dashboard. For right now, we're keeping it real simple. I'm going to get rid of a lot of the fluff and just focus on things that we want to see. And again, I just have 4 items at the top here, but you can always add everything I deleted. You can always add back eventually if you realize that you do want to see it. I'm going to hit save here. Another thing of note, especially on things like the profit and loss and expenses, it shows that there's nothing going on. And why is that? Well, that's because we actually haven't categorized anything yet. So the main thing that you're going to do in QuickBooks is categorize expenses, categorize income, let QuickBooks know what was paid to you personally as the owner taking a distribution and what was used for other things, whether it's an investment, whether it's purchasing more inventory for your business, or just an overhead expense like rent or advertising, something that you pay and the next month it'll probably be the same exact amount. That's all the main reason why we're here and why we're in QuickBooks. But none of these widgets and helpful tools actually are helpful until all transactions are categorized. So please don't be nervous. If you log in, you see 0 expenses in the last 30 days. Well, that's probably because nothing has been recorded as expenses. So that's always the first place to look, is on your banking or transaction screen. And that can be accessed via right here in this widget, but also under transactions and bank transactions. That's where you'll see all the transactions that you have to categorize still and all of the accounts that you have linked to QuickBooks. One other thing I'll note on this page is that QuickBooks recently added these bookmarks. So if you go to a page frequently, like you'll see bank transactions has already been bookmarked, you probably want to save it up here so that you're not navigating every time through these multiple layers of options to select on the left-hand side here. So for example, I'm also going to bookmark vendors because I find that to be very useful. And I'm also going to bookmark customers. Final thing is reports. That I want to show you because that's kind of why you're doing all this work in QuickBooks. The main reason is to produce 2 reports for yourself. One is the balance sheet, which says how much cash you have in the bank, how much debt you owe to other people, how much credit card debt you have, and then how much equity you have left in the business, which is the difference between all those assets that you have, equipment, bank account cash, investments, and your liabilities. Easiest to think of it on the scale of a home or your house. If you own your home, you know you have an asset. It's worth whatever Zillow tells you it's worth or whatever someone wants to pay for it. What you have against that is your liability. You probably have a mortgage that you owe to the bank. But the difference between what it's worth and what that mortgage is your equity. That's your equity in the house. That's what you can use to pull more money out if you need to borrow more money against your house. Or that's what you can expect to receive once you sell the property, pay off the mortgage, and that's the amount you'll have left over. Same thing in business. You have your asset, you have your liability, and then you have everything else kind of left over That's your equity to take. But in order to know what those numbers are, we obviously need to categorize expenses. So the best two reports to look at, like I said before, balance sheet, profit and loss. Right now, when I run these, I'm running it this year to date. So for the first full 9 months of the year, it looks pretty empty. And why is that? Again, because we haven't recorded any income or any expenses yet. So you can always expect to see a balance sheet or profit and loss that isn't accurate at all, whether that's zero or whether it's just wildly inaccurate, if there's no transactions recorded. Once we start recording transactions, that's when the balance sheet will start to populate with, hey, this is your bank account balance, and this is your net income at the end of the day, the difference being your equity. So if I go back over to the main page, the dashboard, I'm going to click on this bank transactions in the left-hand side, and this is the screen you'll be spending most of your time in. Right now, we just have one bank account that's linked, but as you can see for review, I have 200 transactions to review, which seems a little bit overwhelming. So in order to kind of pare this down, what you can do is you can filter. And you can filter by a lot of different options. The best way, probably dates. Look at the most recent stuff first. Work your way backwards if you're trying to play catch up for a full year like I am. That'll often help you isolate, okay, here's just 15 transactions. I need to figure out where to record them, and then I can move on. The other way is you can sort or filter things by whether it's money coming into the bank, money coming out of the bank. If there was a rule applied, we'll teach you about rules too. Whether there's a suggested match, QuickBooks thinks it knows what the transaction is based on something else that you told it, or if it's not assigned to any category. There's various types of filters that you can apply, just again, to pare down the number of transactions you have to look through. And you can also search. If you only want to record Amazon transactions, you'll see all the Amazon transactions listed at the top. I hit enter. That's all I see now. I only see one of 7 items. But again, keep your eye on the prize. There's still 205 in total to review. I'm only looking at the 7 Amazon transactions because that's what I've asked it for. But I know I have in total 205 transactions to record. I'll take off that filter, that search filter, and now I'll see all 205 again. The other thing to note is that once you start to categorize things, all those transactions will show up in this tab called Categorize. So if you've made a mistake, you think, oh my goodness, I can't believe I recorded that to inventory by accident. Not a big deal at all. You can either edit it from within the Categorize, or you can even undo it, put it back on this full review screen, recategorize it as if nothing ever happened. No alerts go off. You can feel free to adjust any mistakes anytime you want. It's just a great way to catch something that you realized after the fact could have been put in a better spot. The last tab on here is excluded. So this means any transaction that shouldn't be in your books. Now for our purposes, everything is being downloaded from the bank, so everything should be included. There should be nothing in excluded. Usually if we're trying to do a reconciliation and tying what is in QuickBooks to what is on your bank statement, there's something not on that in QuickBooks list, this is the first place we're going to look, because a lot of people think, oh, this is personal, I don't need to include it in my books. But that couldn't be further from the truth. We want to make sure we have all transactions recorded. We're just going to make sure we record them properly so that they're not expenses on your books. It's just something like a distribution, paying you personally. So never put anything in excluded. If you ever see excluded and you see a list of transactions, something's probably gone wrong, and let us know as soon as possible. And the last thing I'll point out is the settings. So under settings, you can change the columns that show up here. So you can change the to from column if you don't want to see that. That's essentially assigning, click on one of these. It's essentially assigning either the vendor or the customer. It's kind of who you paid. That's the to from column. And then that always should be on. And then the other things here is, preferences on how you want to see your transactions. So in this case, everything is in one line. If it's a positive number, that means it's a deposit or it's money in. If it's a negative number, that means it's money out. To me, that's a little challenging because you always have to pay attention to that negative or positive at the beginning. So I always like to turn this specific show amounts in one column option off. Then I can be able to see quickly money spent, money received. I think that makes it a lot easier to kind of navigate and also a lot easier to sort if you're looking for something specific. All these columns can be sorted by whatever's at the top. So we can sort by date if we're looking oldest, opposite way if we're looking for the newest. We can sort by description, which is going to be super helpful as you categorize a ton of transactions, because that'll let you group things. Again, all Amazon purchases are together, all interest income items are together, anything with the same bank description gets lumped together, which in theory should make it easier to categorize. And the other thing I will warn you about is the page size limits. So it defaults to 50, but obviously with 200 transactions, that takes a couple of different pages and a while to get through. So I always like to make the pages as long as possible so that we can, when we sort, we can see everything all at once. Thankfully, I'm under 300 transactions, so I can see everything in this one screen. But keep an eye on that, because that's definitely going to be something you want to play around with, toggle on and off if you're dealing with a lot of transactions. All right, so the next video is going to be about categorizing these transactions and how we can best do that.